Hello, SOSers.
Hello.
Welcome back. We're ready.
Little peek behind the curtain.
Wait, what were you doing?
I was just like trying to fix my hair and whatever. So, yes, hello. We're back.
It reminds me of like those news bloopers.
Yes.
I so pale. Do you remember that one? Look it up.
Dude, news bloopers are one of my favorite things to watch.
My favorite. Like,
them.
I might actually watch that after this.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of news bloopers, we have something very topical in the news right now, and some could call it a blooper, an uh-oh, if you will. And that is the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp case. Now, I know you've like heard like there's some basics about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I knew a little, but you really know a lot more than me. And the more you told me about it, I was like, oh,
yeah,
this is really culturally interesting. It's worth diving into.
Yeah, it's a weird one. And like there's a lot of people that like might know a lot or might know just the basics. So I feel like with this episode, it's really polarizing, this case to begin with, but you might hear a lot more people that are siding with Johnny Depp. And my first gut reaction was like, well, this is bullshit because he's just this beloved star. He's a dude, and this is just rooted in sexism because how dare their beloved actor be involved with something so heinous? And as the case that's happening, and this, is airing a week after how we're filming this, so there might be even more updates. So please look that up.
And just for people that have no idea, he was accused of physical abuse. And
It's just kind of, let me go into that now. You're right. Before we get into any more. But on April 11th, 7 years after Amber Heard first accused Johnny Depp of assaulting her, Heard, 35, and Depp, 58, will come face to face with each other, or have come face to face with each other in a Virginia courtroom over allegations that Heard defamed Depp, and he is suing her for $50 million over a 2018 Washington Post op-ed she wrote titled Opinion. Amber Heard, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. This has to change. In response, Heard filed a $100 million defamation counterclaim against Depp. So, so this is just so messy on so many levels. So I feel like because of my confusion and not understanding, I'm like, well, is this like my feminist brain that wants to protect Heard, or is this case just that gray that maybe there are no heroes out of this or no victims, and
just a mutually abusive, unhealthy, toxic relationship?
Exactly.
Maybe.
And how can we maybe not even like, because these are just celebrities to us, these aren't actual like people in your life, but there could be, right? There could be someone that exhibits behaviors like Amber or even Johnny. And we're going to go over those behaviors in this episode because they can be subtle, but they could also be very apparent. And sometimes you don't know how to get out of those situations.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so messy all around.
So Johnny Depp and Amber Heard met and began a relationship on the set of Depp's movie The Rum Diary in 2009. Amber Heard was 23, Depp was 46.
Already kind of a red flag.
I mean, I don't know. I've been there.
True.
24 and 44. Okay, no judgment. So I'm just saying. But yeah, you're not wrong. Could be. Subsequently, wow, they married in 2015. So that was like quite a while after they met in 2009.
Yeah.
And then legally in California, and then again ceremoniously on Depp's private island in the Bahamas.
Nice.
Can't relate to that.
Yeah. Super
in
rich.
May 2016, only 15 months later, Heard filed for divorce. She cited irreconcilable differences. I can't talk. She filed a restraining order against Depp, accusing him of hitting her with a phone. She appeared days later at the Los Angeles courthouse with a bruised cheek and said in court papers that Depp had been verbally and physically abusive to her during the entirety of their relationship.
For those of you listening, watching, remember that part, because something came out today about what happened yesterday, which was the 22nd, of updates on that bruised cheek. So remember the bruised cheek.
Okay. Is this one of our murder mystery episodes?
I know. I mean, literally, it's like, what? The things that unravel, it's just weird.
So weird. So Depp vehemently denied he ever struck Heard. And the police who initially investigated Heard's claims said they found no evidence of a crime. Instead, Depp accused Heard in his court papers of attempting to secure a premature financial resolution by alleging abuse, which is a whole other issue and something that should be taken seriously as well. So it's like both these things, like you don't want to discount a woman saying she's been hurt, obviously, but you don't want to discount like someone who has a shit ton of money with their spouse that 15 months later is like, divorce, he hurt me. Like,
Yeah.
where
Or,
do we
and a
go?
pattern of why that would even, like, if there's a pattern of behavior that makes sense too.
Yeah, yeah. So Heard's initial request for a temporary restraining order against Depp was granted, but on the eve of their civil trial over extending the restraining order, Heard and Depp announced that they had settled their differences. As part of the divorce settlement, Depp gave Heard $7 million, as the couple had no prenup. Heard subsequently announced that she would be donating the money to the ACLU and to Children's Hospital in Los Angeles, saying at the time it was to help others less able to defend themselves.
Also, remember that.
Yeah.
Remember the $7
$7
million dollar
That she-
settlement that she says that she's going to donate. Okay, so 2 years after that, Amber Heard then wrote an op-ed at the center of the current lawsuit. In the column published on December 18th, 2018, she stated, "I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change." Very graphic headline for sure. She went on and said, "Then 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse and felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out." Adding, "I had that rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse." Now, that
True.
it's all so true. And that is why this is so hard going into a case like this, knowing the truth of how our society treats women and men when it comes. But understand that this article came out at the peak of the Me Too movement. Okay. So
2018.
yeah. So there was a lot of stakes at the time with this. Despite the fact that he wasn't personally named in the op-ed, Depp filed a $50 million defamation lawsuit against Amber in Virginia over her characterizations in those 3 sentences. His team alleged that the op-ed depended on the central premise that Miss Heard was a domestic abuse victim and that Mr. Depp perpetrated domestic violence against her. Fair. You know what I mean? Like everyone knew that she was talking about him with the bruised cheek and the new, that was around the time that she filed for divorce against him. Everything that made sense that she was obviously talking about Johnny. Depp's legal team stated that in his court papers, the false allegations against Mr. Depp had been conclusively refuted. Refuted by 2 separate responding police officers, a litany of neutral third-party witnesses, and 87 obtained surveillance camera videos.
That's a lot.
So that's a lot disputing it. There's some things that are like, like 2 officers saying they couldn't find evidence.
They could be Johnny Depp fans.
And also it's like, cops don't talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Are they
Cops.
really
And
going to
also,
like give a shit about a woman?
There's not always, what do you mean by evidence?
Exactly.
There's not always evidence.
There's not always evidence. Depp said that the accusations against him have damaged his film career and his reputation as a public figure. He blamed Amber for his losing out on roles 4 days after the op-ed was first published. Disney announced it was dropping Depp from his leading role as Captain Jack Sparrow in the lucrative Pirates of the Caribbean franchise.
That's huge.
So he was losing some money from this.
Big money.
Big money.
So this part is interesting because, like,
yeah, so this is in the trial.
Yeah, and I was like, the therapist against their code to, but okay.
I think they have to in
when they're on trial,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
It just feels weird. A therapist who worked with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard in 2015 testified that Depp had been well controlled. This is her quote. Depp had been well controlled, I think, for almost, 20, 30 years, and both were victims of abuse in their homes. But I thought he had been well controlled for decades. And with Miss Heard, he was triggered, and they engaged in what I saw as mutual abuse. In counseling sessions, Heard would often interrupt, while Depp tended to be more reticent, she said. Miss Heard had a jackhammer style of talking. She was very amped up. He had trouble talking at a similar pace. In a session, she said that Heard talked about a strategy for getting out of the relationship. Her therapy notes state, Will she have advantage if she leaves him but files with police for abuse first?
Now that is so interesting because you can look at it both sides. You could look at it as like an actual abuse victim that is the victim through and through, that's just trying to figure out the best course of action so people believe her. But also you can look at that as a narcissist that just cares about optics.
Yep. And the money. So Anderson recalled a conversation with Depp in June of 2016 in which Depp was looking back on the relationship after it had ended. Depp said that the relationship was chaotic and violent and that Heard gave as good as she got. I agreed, Anderson said. This is the therapist. She initiated fights. She started violence. She rose to the challenge if he started first. In my opinion, that had been established throughout the relationship, that she fought as hard as he did, and he tried to de-escalate far more than I think she did. Okay.
Interesting.
So to me, it sounds mutual. Like they trigger each other in some way, and they push each other's buttons and they just jump at each other's throat. That's common in argumentative relationships. And then there is usually one person who's more stubborn.
Yes.
One person who will eventually try to de-escalate before the other person does.
Yeah.
And just in public demeanor, I don't really know Amber Heard, but obviously Johnny Depp been in the public eye for a long time. And that's not to say that this is their real personality because we don't know them. But her statement about him being very controlled and like being like slower paced talking and de-escalating more than that tracks with how he publicly presents himself. Not that says who he is, but it does track with that.
100%. Now this part, I remember watching this actually live when they watched this testimony of Amber Heard's executive assistant, Kate James. Kate James is also, I feel like there's a lot of sexism going on when people talk about Kate James's testimony because like she's very curt and like, no, it's not relevant. Why are you asking me that? Like, no, I told you over again. No, this is just ridiculous. Amber was a monster, but Johnny Depp, oh, gentleman. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, she only lit up when talking about Johnny, which is interesting, but she otherwise would just be very to the lawyer, just like very cold. So people are like, she's just so unlikable when she could be coming from trauma.
Yeah.
Amber Heard's former executive assistant, Kate James, recalled how Heard would scream over the phone at her and subjected her to a barrage of abusive text messages day and night. She said the middle of the night, I think between 2 and 4 a.m., the barrage would start. All incoherent, not making sense, just someone to lash out at. No apparent reason to it. She also said that Amber would often exhibit manic episodes similar to if someone was on some kind of amphetamine drug. Remember what the therapist said about someone with a jackhammer style of talking, which just like would not let anyone get a word in edgewise.
Yeah.
Moving fast, not making a lot of sense, hyper organizing, and described the actress as belligerent and abusive.
Okay.
And this is her executive assistant for years. When James was switching from part-time to full-time work, she was negotiating her salary with Amber, who lost her cool. Kate James said, she leapt up out of her chair, put her face 4 inches from my face, telling me how dare I ask the salary I was asking for. And she felt that gave her the right to spit in my face. She spit in her face, adding that she was only getting $50,000. She asked for she was asking for $50,000, by the way. And that was usually half her salary, Kate James, like as an executive assistant to like 8 stars or whatever.
Yeah. That's a 6-figure if you're an executive assistant to a star.
Yeah. And what she was making her do was insane too. According to James, Amber was mean to her sister Whitney, Amber Heard's own sister, and treated her like a dog you kick. Amber Heard's own mother, who has since passed, was terrified of her because she was abusive to her too, Kate James claimed.
Wow.
So I don't think this is mentioned here. Her Amber's previous personal assistant was her own mother, but her mother got sick and couldn't, so she hired Kate. And so it makes kind of sense that like her mother was terrified of her because she was in charge of shit And if
Yeah.
everything was wrong, like she was the punching bag.
Who would ever have your mother as your personal assistant? That is all
Horrifying.
kinds of family.
Ick.
Yeah, no.
And also like the fact that you don't really know how to treat an assistant because you're just used to treating your mom like a punching bag and your like servant, you know, that makes sense to me. Amber Heard's sister Whitney has been questioned over a video which Johnny Depp's lawyers claim shows the actress assaulting her. It was allegedly filmed in 2006 or 2007 and was the unused rushes from a reality television show. And I watched this actually. And then a woman says to Whitney, did you get in a fight? Because she has like bruises on her face. And Whitney told the court that women had been talking about a verbal argument she had with her sister the night before. So like in the video, I don't know what reality show this is. Whitney, Amber Heard's sister, is like talking with these girls and she's just looking so quiet and like not wanting to talk about it. And she doesn't say like, yes, this was my sister that did this to me. But like later on, she's like, yeah, I got into a really bad fight with my sister. And that's all she says. Which is just like, how are you just fucking beating up on your sister?
Right.
It's like if your own family and your own executive personal assistant.
That's the thing. It's like people, it's he said, she said, and whatever. But like people can lie and make stuff up and have their own motives. But at a certain point, if you're looking at it and you're like, okay, this person's old employees, family members are also corroborating certain therapists, corroborating certain things. You do have to start to look at like, okay, well, what's happening? So during the trial, the court had been shown text messages in which Depp used vulgar language and spelled out ways he wished that he could get revenge against Heard, including an exchange between Depp and British actor Paul Bettany.
Yeah, I love him.
I don't know who he is.
You'd recognize me. He's in like Marvel, and if I showed you a pic, you might recognize him.
In some messages, which were read aloud during another trial in 2020, Depp and Bettany, is it Bettany?
Yeah.
Discuss burning and drowning Heard to see if she is a witch. In one reply, Depp wrote of his ex-wife, "Let's drown her before we burn her. I will fuck her burnt corpse afterwards to make sure she's dead."
Bad.
Barely bad. Depp, in his testimony, said his words embarrassed him. "I am ashamed of some of the references made and embarrassed at the tone in the heat of the moment. The heat of the pain I was feeling went to dark places," he said. "Sometimes pain has to be dealt with humor and sometimes very dark humor." I do want to say that the fucking her dead corpse is another level, but
yeah,
you know, like I'm imagining if I'm texting you, if I'm going through a divorce, a bad breakup, some court cases with like something that was really toxic, and you and I are laughing about like burning them at they're a witch, let's burn them at the stake. Like I would text my best friends those things because those are my people I confide in.
And I'm venting.
Yes, not because I actually want to do it. And then I would be horrified and embarrassed if they're read in court because you're like, well, I did say that to Alyssa, but
Yeah, I think it's also another thing when men are talking about a woman.
For sure.
Like, I think it's like fair game, like women, like we're just venting and talking about our issues. But like, I don't know, it's like something that's like... And even more of like because it's a man talking about a woman fucking her dead corpse. It's like,
well, that line,
please don't.
I got nothing to say about that.
But that doesn't mean it doesn't exactly lead to like you're going to be doing something.
Yeah, the dark humor is like calling her a witch, kind of thing. You know, like that's the part where I'm like, that's messed up. But like, it's not. I don't know.
I didn't add this in here, but another important thing to note about Kate James, the executive assistant, is that there were also texts revealed. There weren't a lot. I think there was only a few where after I think she towards the tail end of her work with Amber Heard and like Johnny had already divorced Amber at this point, that there were texts between Johnny and Kate where Johnny was saying like fucked up things about Amber, being like her flabby ass, like fuck her, and to go get a drink together to basically like talk about Amber, and they did. They went out to drink.
Trauma bonding, though.
It's exactly what Kate said in her testimony.
Yeah.
Like this was just
like you. If she was her assistant for years and years and was abused, like spit in her face, and she stayed, and like you're obviously in a very like Stockholm syndrome. Like why are you still there? And you have. I don't know. That's trauma bonding to me. Like you bond over just your hatred over someone that treated you so poorly.
Yeah, 100%.
Maybe. So Depp told the court Part of his finger was severed when Heard threw a vodka bottle at him during an argument in 2015. Heard denied that claim. She threw the large bottle and it made contact with his hand and shattered everywhere, Depp testified. I don't know what a nervous breakdown feels like, but that's probably the closest I've ever been. This is Depp talking. Nothing made sense, and I knew in my mind and in my heart, this is not life. This is not life. No one should have to go through this.
So yeah, like part of his finger was cut off from the multiple bottles that she was throwing at him. And it's actually like fucking weird. Like he used the blood from the finger to smear a phrase into their mirror. I forget what it was. But it's like,
yeah, this
relationship. Okay, so Depp, also in his testimony that happened this week, discussed the final days of the couple's ill-fated marriage. Oh yeah, this part. Oh my God. This is like one of the most wild shit that came out.
Oh yeah.
Ill-fated marriage, which came shortly after Heard's 30th birthday in April 2016. Shortly thereafter, when Depp knew his estranged wife was out of town, he had planned to go to their penthouse to collect some of his personal belongings, but was advised against it by one of his security guards. When Depp pushed to know the reason why, he was sent a photo of the current state of their home, which, as the Wrap reports, includes a pile of supposedly human poop where he slept.
It's just like petty.
It's like
stupid.
What the fuck? Depp struggled to find the words to describe what he saw, but ultimately settled on it being absurd and grotesque and cruel. When asked to describe what he saw in the picture, the actor chose his words carefully, again, but confirmed that it was human fecal matter. Depp admitted that his initial response to the situation was to actually laugh. He said, it was so outside, it was so bizarre and so grotesque that all I could do was laugh, he said. When asked why he didn't think it could have been the dogs, because Amber said it was the dogs for a while, Johnny explained, they're teacup Yorkies. They weighed about 4 pounds each, like describing what the shit looked like. Oh, no, describing what their dogs were. Not the shit.
I was like, what?
I think that's like super fucking weird behavior.
Yeah, it honestly just goes to prove the other evidence against her. Like the claims about her being cruel and immature and impulsive and like
possibly narcissistic and possibly with a personality disorder. I would assume. I think he had said, but no therapist had confirmed it as of yet. But Johnny had said that there was a therapist that diagnosed her with a personality disorder. And I think that's important. It's like not everyone with personality disorder is going to be doing this, but I think it's just important with her pattern of behavior, because I just think it takes a very specific person to shit in a bed. It just doesn't cross a mind.
Right.
Weird shit. So remember how I said to remember the $7 million settlement? Depp's team will, and they haven't yet as of April 23rd, but in the following weeks they could have also gone into this. Depp's team will also prevent evidence that they say shows Heard did not donate the $7 million she received in their settlement to the ACLU or Children's Hospital as promised. But Heard's side is expected to claim that the donations were promised as pledges and that she has not been able to fulfill those pledges yet, given the expensive post-divorce litigation. So apparently, like, because this, lawsuit is so expensive to deal with, that she hasn't fulfilled those donations yet. So it's like, it's like, it's believable, but it's
not
like,
really,
girl,
because she got that $7 million 2 years before she wrote the article.
That's true.
And the case started once she wrote the article.
It's weird.
So
it's fishy. It's fishy. I didn't add this, but I'm going to put this in here. So remember I said to remember the bruised cheek? So it came out yesterday, and this was a whole fucking thing that her defense, her legal team, like put together, that throughout her relationship, why there wasn't more photographic evidence of abuse, because she said there was I think, forget how many times she said that she was hit so many times that left marks, but there was no evidence. Or when there was evidence the next day, like photographic evidence, the next day it would mysteriously be gone. Like in paparazzi photos, you wouldn't see the bruises anymore. So she claims in the legal team that throughout their entire relationship, she wore a Milani, the makeup brand Milani, color palette to color correct and disguise her bruises. Okay. There's like photos. I didn't see this live because this is all televised. Like of her lawyer holding up the palette, right? And this whole thing. And Milani, like representatives had to testify.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is she claims this is the magical palette. Like so specific that Amber remembers the specific palette that she used to disguise her bruises. Milani comes out and anybody also can do this research. That palette didn't come out until years after the divorce, and they had already broken up.
This is like, honestly, the minutia of this like doesn't matter to me. I'm like, this is so stupid. Like, but cultural context is just like, because it shows that she's unhinged.
So, speaking of Me Too, photographer and prominent Me Too activist Amanda de Cadenet dropped her support for Heard, her old friend, after listening to her verbally abusing Johnny Depp in audio tapes. Heard was expecting Amanda to testify against Depp in a series of looming defamation case, but it just came out that she's not. She changed her mind because she was so appalled and shocked to hear Amber was speaking to Johnny. In an audio tape, Amber admitted clocking Depp in the jaw and pelting him with pots, pans, vases, and recordings made prior to the couple's May 2016 split. Amber also appeared to be Johnny predicting that nobody would believe his accounts of the violence and telling him, "You're such a baby, grow the fuck up." Yeah, in the video, in the audio, in the video, she's just berating him. It's like, fucked up. You're such a baby, grow the fuck up. Amanda de Cadenet is the second prominent Me Too figure to part with Heard in the space for a week after a high-profile Time's Up attorney, Roberta Kaplan, confirmed her firm is no longer representing her. So it's like, I remember when this article, that original op-ed that Johnny started this lawsuit over, where she said she was this victim and like, you know, she went to the Women's March. Like, she was just a figurehead in the Me Too movement. And it's just so bizarre, this kind of like rise and fall in this movement, and to claim such a space in that movement that's so important for women to, and men, honestly, to speak their truth about the abuse. It's just so appalling and dangerous to take up that space, and then it ends up being, you were just as much, if not more so, the abuser. And it's like, what are the ramifications of this is what a lot of people are wondering. Like, the case is not over, and that's very important to remember. Like, she's about to testify. So Johnny I think he might be testifying more in the coming week. But Amber has yet to testify. So more could come out, and more could also come out where what Johnny did. And we don't want to excuse what Johnny did. It's fucked up, but I just feel like, I don't know, to take up so much space and then be an abuser is just so fucking dangerous.
If prominent figures in the Me Too movement are pulling their support from her, that says a lot.
Yeah. But it's also like, what is really happening to Johnny? Because this whole lawsuit is because he's been, you know, he's a victim, but I don't know.
So Kylie Cheung, a writer for Salon and Jezebel, speaks about what actual repercussions Depp is facing, if any. She says, even if there are some in the American entertainment industry who may be understandably hesitant to work with a man who has been accused of horrific violence against an ex-partner for optics' sake, Depp's seemingly untouched reputation in the film world of Europe reminds us that there will always be second chances and other opportunities for men like him, no matter how much they may publicly render themselves the victims of their own narratives. Depp is hardly the first disgraced and allegedly abusive or otherwise problematic American artist to be embraced in Europe, joining the ranks of Roman Polanski, Woody Allen, and Kevin Spacey, notably all accused of child sexual abuse in this market. Are the Me Too movement and its boycotts, quote, boycotts, really ruining these men's lives, as they and their defenders often claim? Or is feminist cultural backlash really just propelling them onto the next opportunity lined up for them elsewhere? Yes. In spaces that are less concerned with the treatment of women.
Now, with this makes me think about the Will Smith thing, because if you don't know, Will Smith smacked Chris Rock, and Will Smith is now banned for the next 10 years from any Oscars, Academy Awards. He's banned from the Academy and everything. I just find it so fucking interesting that Woody Allen, who literally sexually assaulted his daughter. Harvey Weinstein movies are still being lauded and all this shit. Roman Polanski, who sexually assaulted a 13-year-old. All of these fucking pieces of shit aren't banned from the Academy Awards.
Correct.
But you know who is? Fucking Will Smith.
Yeah.
I'm not saying what he did was the right thing to do, but I'm sorry.
No, it's just a very skewed,
bullshit.
very skewed world.
You know, I know that is more of a conversation about race completely, but like when it comes to Johnny Depp, who is a white man, like, I'm sorry, he's really not being canceled in the grand scheme of things. Like, this is like a little stain, but like it just, sorry, the Will Smith case is just, I feel like this is such a parallel to this because of the fact that like there is really no consequence when it comes to a white man in power who's done like worse shit than Will Smith did or will ever do, maybe. Whatever.
Exactly.
So sad.
I agree with that. There will always be excuses for powerful men like Depp who face allegations of violence and abuse. The director of the San Sebastian Film Festival that honored Depp defended their choice by noting that he, quote, had not been arrested, charged, or convicted of any form of assault or violence against women. A stunningly ignorant statement to anyone even vaguely familiar with how the American criminal justice system has long dismissed or punished victims and often aided and protected abusers. So Depp is the ultimate victim in the eyes of his fans, no matter how much he may equate growing industry concerns about gender-based violence as wrongful boycott against him. He continues to hold tremendous power. Of course, over the course of the summer, legions of Johnny Depp fans engaged in a massive internet campaign push to have Heard removed from her role in the next Aquaman film. He remains the toast of European film scene and stands to potentially make millions off of his ex-wife's lawsuit over an op-ed about surviving domestic abuse. Depp is, by all means, still a vastly powerful man, and that's precisely why he takes perceived slights like being denied an American release date or for one of his films so harshly. To hold so much power and face any amount of accountability is intolerable, or in his own words, a literal boycott.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of egos.
It is.
It's a bunch of egos.
And we want to present, like, I'm going to go into another side of this, like both sides, because again, this is polarizing, and there's just, even as polarizing as this is in the world, the takes on this, I've seen a lot of misogynistic takes on this. I've seen a lot of like just disgusting things about Amber. I'm not saying they're not all warranted. It's just, I feel like we need perspective on this because even as the therapist said, there was abuse on both sides. It does seem to like, it seems that Amber knew that, she had also come from trauma and he came from trauma and abuse as well. But I feel like she knew his triggers more.
Yeah, it seems like she's more of an instigator.
Yes. So Deborah Handover for Medium writes, we as a society have committed to a new and beautiful effort to believe women. This campaign is geared at reversing the generations long trend of questioning and intimidating women into silence whenever they come forward against the rich and powerful. What happens then if one of these women lies? The reaction of Heard's allegations was almost instantaneous. There were calls to boycott upcoming films which featured Depp. Multiple petitions popped up in seeking to remove him from his role as Grindelwald in Fantastic Beasts, one of which racked up more than 20,000 signatures. Major news outlets questioned whether keeping him on board was a wise or ethical decision. Forbes labeled Depp's continued presence in the films an endless PR headache. Later, a Vox article went so far as to imply a connection between Depp's abuse allegations and mass shooters and political assassins. So that is in the world, that kind of comparison. And when Warner Brothers and J.K. Rowling announced their intent to keep Depp as Grindelwald, The Sun published a headline which now plays a starring role in Depp's libel case against news group newspapers. Quote, how can J.K. Rowling be genuinely happy casting wife-beater Johnny Depp in the new Fantastic Beasts film? Later, he was let go of the film, so he lost out on that as well. Even more damaging, Disney announced that they would be removing Depp from his role as Jack Sparrow. And just 4 days after Heard's Washington Post op-ed was published, setting aside Depp's personal fondness for the role and the monetary loss he would suffer as a result, this decision was widely viewed as the death knell of the Pirates franchise. So a lot of people lost out because of that, not just him. Meanwhile, Heard's career rocketed into new heights. In 2017, she appeared in Mira and Justice League and would later reprise her role in Aquaman. In May of 2018, Heard was announced to be the new global spokesperson for L'Oreal Cosmetics. In December of the same year, she announced her role as an ambassador for the ACLU. Funny, because that was one of the places.
Going to donate.
Exactly. And her Washington Post op-ed featured on the ACLU website. There have been troubling gaps in Heard's story since the outset. For one, Depp never actually throws anything at Heard in the video TMZ released. Additionally, two domestic violence trained LAPD officers who both testified under oath to seeing no sign of injury or property damage on the night of one of Depp's alleged attacks. Then there are the paparazzi shots taken the day after Heard appeared at court with a bruise on her face, in which she appears to be both makeup and injury-free. Then, with the filing of the defamation suit in 2019, came multiple eyewitnesses' accounts of Heard allegedly throwing things at Depp, punching him with a closed fist, spitting on him, not the first time we've heard that, and verbally abusing him on several occasions. When we band together as a society to seek justice for the abused, we must apply that effort to everyone equally and acknowledge that when we have done wrong. Otherwise, we risk losing all credibility. On a personal note, this is Deborah saying this. I'm a woman who's experienced sexual assault more than once. When the Me Too movement took its first strides, I celebrated, thinking we were moving in the right direction. Seeing that I had been lied to by someone purporting to represent me felt like a betrayal. Seeing the very movement that I trusted to move us forward tie themselves to that person and dismiss my reaction as that of a Depp stan felt like abandonment. So I feel like she does a really great job echoing a lot of people's frustrations on this. And by the way, we're going to be linking all of the articles. Vulture had an amazing article breaking down the trial. And then this article that I just read by Deborah Handover and the one by Kylie Cheung. We'll put that on our show notes. But I feel like Deborah's recount of this is, like I said, so important to remember when anybody is coming to a conclusion about this. And yeah, I just really fear for this fucking movement because it's already so hard to get here where we can actually have a movement where we believe women. But when this is so high profile, the stakes are so high. And if it's co-opted by a narcissist to this degree, like, what the fuck are we doing?
I mean, there's no way that a movement's gonna go its whole span without having things like this happen.
I know.
Of course, this is gonna happen, but having conversations like this and articles written and people that are actually, and people who are prominent in the Me Too movement retracting their support of her, so that's just what it has to be. Like, that's how we get through these things where people lie about it. And it's just like, it's so sad because it feels like it sets everybody, like, all of a sudden you're speaking for all women, and then you do that, and then it's like, okay, because you always hear, the line from men of like, well, we're not all like this, or like not all men are.
Hashtag not all men.
Yeah, exactly. But and like obviously, like that's obvious, and rational women, even women who have experienced assault, abuse, like, which is most women, I think. Rational women will acknowledge, like, yeah, it's possible that a woman is abusive to a man in a relationship, and that she lies about it. And yes, that's all possible. We should not get too zoomed in on the minutia of something to like, oh, well, in this case, the woman did it. Well, what does that say about okay, yeah, she did. Or, I mean, I don't know with Amber,
and there's
but I'm
so
just
many
using that as
people
an example.
on the right that are doing that now. They're like,
so
this is why we shouldn't believe all women. And it's like,
but that's
fuck
the
yourself.
thing. Like, you zoom in, and in this case, maybe it was the woman, but that does not diminish. Like, zoom back out. Look at how women are treated in the world, let alone our country, let alone by powerful white men, all of these things. And just like, the movement stands, and the purpose and the cause is just as valid as it was before. It's just the little tiny bad apples in there that are like, we're going to have to deal with. Like, it's going to happen. This shit is going to come out, and there are women that are going to lie, but the majority won't. And so it's just a matter of navigating that.
Yep. And it's like, so many things like disgust me of this. Just, disgust me of like what went down in this relationship and what they're doing in public. But I can't imagine what it would be like for someone that went through abuse, you know, and looked up to Amber's like bravery.
Mm-hmm.
And then now she's just, she isn't as innocent. Ugh, it's fucking sad, but have perspective, guys.
Yeah.
But, very funny. Our charity nonprofit that we're going to shout out today is the ACLU.
Yes.
So make sure they get their monies.
Make sure they get their $7 million they were promised.
As a background, for more than 100 years, ACLU lawyers have been at the center of one history-making court case after another, participating in more Supreme Court cases than any other private organization. With attorneys nationwide, they handle thousands of cases each year on behalf of clients whose rights have been violated. So to learn more and donate, please visit aclu.org.
Yes. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at the SOS Pod. Check us out on Patreon. You can become a member at different tiers of different benefits levels, $3 a month, $7 a month, or $11. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts, so that we're more searchable by strangers looking for new podcasts. If you rate and review us, it really helps. I'm Molly Cottrell.
I'm Melissa Rosano.
And here's to turning meltdowns
into magic.